Breaking tonight, a newly released batch of 44 private server emails is shedding light on questionable ties between top Hillary Clinton aides during her time at the State Department and the Clinton Foundation. Now, with an estimated 33,000 deleted emails yet to be uncovered, some are wondering if the Democratic nominee is sitting on a looming October surprise. The Wall Street Journal reports, quote, if those emails do surface, she will try to blame Donald Trump or Vladimir Putin or WikiLeaks. But the fault will lie with Mrs. Clinton's willful deception and gross negligence about handling official state business that have left her wide open for an October surprise. Joining me now is Charles Krauthammer, syndicated columnist and Fox News contributor. Charles, thanks for being here tonight.
My pleasure. So
will there be an October surprise, as that editorial in the Wall Street Journal today indicated?
Well, no one knows, but if it does happen, it won't be a surprise, because we've seen a small sample, a small number of emails that were not declared. We know that even within that small sample, there were at least 2 examples of self-dealing between the Clinton Foundation, which is a sort of a machine for siphoning money from rich, foreign, sometimes unsavory sources, into an organization whose one purpose is to create a network self-funded for Clinton cronies and hangers-oners, the administration in waiting, and that it was getting favors for the people who were contributing to it from the State Department. Now, that is so obviously, it may not be illegal, that you may not be able to prove a quid pro quo, but this sort of use of the foundation and then working with the State Department, whether it was Hillary personally or not, does not matter, to get favors is a form of corruption at the least.
And that's
now,
just what
if this comes out, this could be very, very serious.
And that's, Charles, just what we learned in these 44 new emails, this latest batch. We know that there's 33,000 that were still never turned over. What's in those? Well,
then the question is, will we get those? Is somebody sitting on them? Is WikiLeaks sitting on them? Are the Russians sitting on them? If they are, then, and they want to be either help Trump or hurt her for whatever reason. And remember, Putin he blamed Hillary herself personally for the demonstrations that followed his electoral victory when he won the presidency, which was obviously a fraud. He blamed her. The propaganda from Russia was blaming her, so he may have a reason. And if he drops this stuff, and you wanted to hurt her, what would you do? You would do it in the middle, the end of October, when there's no time to respond, and it could explode her candidacy.
Well, and to be clear, WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has hinted that that may happen. He told a competing network that he might release, quote, a lot more material, noting that they are having so much political impact in the United States. So it's almost a hint that this is coming.
Well, it could be a bluff. We never know. The irony is she would know. She would know, generally speaking, what was in those emails and whether there is incriminating evidence, whether there was a quid pro quo. I doubt she would have put that in writing, but I could imagine that some of the stuff between staff at the foundation, staff at the State Department would give indications of favors. And if it came out in a mass among the 30,000 emails, I think it could have a very negative effect, a catastrophic effect on her candidacy.
And what do you make, Charles, of this new report out that the top Clinton State Department aide helped the Clinton Foundation? We're talking about Cheryl Mills, chief of staff for Hillary Clinton while at the State Department, that she got on a train, went to New York, and conducted interviews for the Clinton Family Foundation for a person to run it.
Well, I hadn't heard that, but assuming it's true from a reliable source, it's simply a symbol of what the entire operation was. People were coming in and out of the foundation. They were giving their cronies, their lackeys, jobs there, holding operation. They had $50 million in travel expenses, and this is supposed to be a charity. It was not a charity. It was a sort of headquarters of Clinton, Inc., and the fact that they did not draw a strict line between State Department and the foundation is, to me, astonishing, not because it's quite politically immoral, but because it is so stupid. It is so easy to discover, and in the end, so distasteful that it would, if you know you're going to run for the presidency, which I assume she did, then it makes no sense, but they did it.
Knowing she was going to run for president, keeping that private server, and as you say, you can't keep secrets in Washington. Charles Krauthammer, thank you.
Sure.
New concerns tonight about a story the Kelly File brought you on Tuesday night, as we are now learning that the police-involved shooting in Chicago has reportedly inspired threats against the city's entire police department. The officers involved in the pursuit and eventual death of 18-year-old Paul O'Neill are not being named out of fears for their safety. And the concerns over this case are inspiring growing questions about whether these threats are based on the facts of O'Neill's death or the interpretations of a select few. Michael Oppenheimer is a civil rights attorney now representing the family of Paul O'Neill. Michael, what do you make of the reports of these threats for the entire police department as a result of what happened?
So I have heard these reports. I think, first of all, no one, not the O'Neill family, not me, no one wants police officers to be injured or hurt. There have been way too many this year alone. They have a very, very tough job, and they lay their lives on the line every day for the community. However, I think that these reports are a distraction. They are a distraction from actually what's going on here, and that is you have an unarmed African-American kid who is shot in the back by Chicago police officers. I think that this is a distraction. No one wants any police officer to be hurt. Nobody wants anybody to be hurt. But this is a distraction.
All right, so you said that the officer who fired the fatal shot intentionally shut down his body camera. How do you know that when no camera actually captured that happening? I mean, we know that there was 9 different cameras that you have seen the video of, 5 attached to the dashboard of police cruisers and 4 attached to the officers themselves.
Well,
but none of them captured the actual fatal shot.
Correct, and that's exactly the point. There are so many unanswered questions. In the age of GoPro and Instagram and all these other things, we have these body cams who are notoriously high quality. They're very clear quality. All these other officers' body cams were working. It is strange to me, it is peculiar to say the least, that the officer who apparently shot Paul O'Neill in the back, that his body cam was not working. To say that it wasn't working or we don't have it is insane to me.
Right.
How is it not working? How is it not turned on?
And one other question for you, but we have to move on. But sure. the not naming of the police officers involved, how does the family reacting to that?
Well, look, we filed a federal civil rights lawsuit in federal court. We don't know the names of the officers yet because they have not been released to us. Eventually, those officers' names will be out as part of a public lawsuit. All right.
Thank you for joining us tonight.
Sure.
All right. Joining me now with reaction to that is Dean Angelos, Sr., president of the Chicago Fraternal Order of Police. Your reaction to our discussion there with the family's attorney?
Well, it just feeds the frenzy again, making statements like the individual officer purposely turned his camera off when that's completely inaccurate. The officer's camera would have been on, then shut off, and then it was turned back on later on in the throughout that event. The officers just got those cameras about 4 days earlier. They're still through the processes of getting used to them, to get involved in a situation that these officers were engaged in, and then have the wherewithal to focus on the implementation of that new device, and then to think that it was a conspiratorial type of a disconnection that the officer went through to not capture that is, again, what is your interpretation of the video that you have seen? Because I assume you've seen all of it. Yes, I've seen the videos. I've seen an incident that occurred over a matter of seconds. I've seen officers that are involved in a vehicle pursuit that get out of a vehicle, their vehicle, put themselves in harm's way when the car comes crashing down through the 2 parked vehicles towards an officer. He's able to get out of the way. The gunfire starts, and then the officers start their foot pursuit shortly after the car hits head-on. So we've all seen, the incident play out in video, but the mindset of the individual officers that are there is what's being brushed over. To think that someone is particularly or participating in an event to cover up and not capture his confrontation with the young guy as he's running through the yards.
This young
18-year-old
man is dead, and the police force is under threat. We're being told now this is a horrible situation in the city of Chicago, one that has to be dealt with. What is the morale there of the police right now?
Well, the morale is probably the lowest I've seen it in my 36 years with the police department. Everyone is wondering when the next shoe is going to drop. You know, we have a narrative out here that's inaccurate. It started with statements coming from the attorney that this young guy was shot in the back of the head, execution style, which was not true. We have the head of the investigating units making statements to the effect that the video is horrible and shocking and difficult to watch even before it gets played. And that's the narrative we're dealing with here. All
right, well, we've got to leave it there. Dean Angelo, Sr., thank you for joining us tonight. Well, as we learned, the Obama administration was selling Americans a very different version of ISIS than the actual reality of the situation. Donald Trump has stirred up some controversy of his own, remarking 5 times in the past 24 hours that President Obama is the, quote, founder of ISIS. Here's just one of those occasions.
Last night you said the president was the founder of ISIS. I know what you meant. You meant that he created the vacuum, he lost the peace.
No, I meant he's the founder of ISIS. I do. He's the most valuable player. I give him the most valuable player award. I give her too, by the way.
But he's not sympathetic to them. He hates them. He's trying to kill them.
He was the founder.
All right, Democrats were quick to pounce on those comments as inappropriate, but can they really claim the moral high ground when they have made equally inflammatory comments in the past towards their political opponents, including Mr. Trump?
I think it's somewhat ironic to see some members of Congress wanting to make common cause with the hardliners in Iran. It's an unusual coalition.
I think the kinds of rhetoric that we've heard too often from Mr. Trump and others is ultimately helping to do ISIL's work.
He is becoming ISIS's best recruiter. They are going to people showing videos of Donald Trump insulting Islam and Muslims in order to recruit more radical jihadists.
All right, joining me now is Dr. Sebastian Gorka, author of Defeating Jihad and a distinguished chair of military theory at Marine Corps University. Larry Korb is a senior fellow with the Center for American Progress and a former assistant secretary of defense. Dr. Gorka, I'll start with you first. What do you believe that Donald Trump, to speak of his rhetoric first, we'll get to the Democrats in a second, but what do you think that Donald Trump meant when he said that President Obama is the founder of ISIS?
Well, I'm not his spokesman. I'm not part of his campaign, so let him talk for himself. But if he means that the Obama administration and Hillary Clinton facilitated the growth of ISIS into the most powerful jihadi insurgency the world has ever seen, he is absolutely right. Let's just look at the facts. In 2008, when this senator from Illinois became the president and afterwards appointed Hillary as his secretary in state, at that moment in time, ISIS didn't exist. Al-Qaeda in Iraq, the forerunner of ISIS, was one regional franchise inside Iraq. When we withdrew our troops, when we started to cook the books on intelligence, as you hear from the CENTCOM analysts, then we facilitated the rise of ISIS. With these false red lines in Syria that meant nothing, all the things were put in place by this administration to help this former Al-Qaeda franchise become a trans-regional insurgency with more than 80,000 fighters today. That's fact.
All right, well, Larry, the media is really running with this. I mean, Donald Trump has had many occasions to either clarify that statement, but he's doubled, tripled, quadrupled down on calling President Obama the founder of ISIS and also making the same insinuation with Hillary Clinton. But they've started to use words like Donald Trump said that the president created ISIS. He didn't say that.
Well, I think if you take a look at what he said and compare it to his own statements, Dr. Gorka seemed to indicate that by us leaving Iraq in 2011 under the agreement that was signed before Obama came into office, and Maliki, the prime minister, refused to modify, Trump said we should leave in 2007. He also said we should leave in 2008. He said it again in 2011. So if that's what he's blaming ISIS, and if you go back to how did ISIS start, Zarqawi, who was really the founder of ISIS, was a nobody till Colin Powell went before the United Nations and glorified him and said he was associated with Saddam.
So what's your point? Are you saying but let's go back to the rhetoric that's being used, because the left is on the attack on Donald Trump for saying such a thing. Dr. Gorka made the case for why he could mean it the way he did. He explains it, but then you have the use of the same rhetoric on the left. Hillary Clinton, in addition to what you just heard from President Obama, Hillary Clinton at the Democratic debate in December said he is becoming ISIS's best recruiter. I mean, isn't that similar?
Well, I think if you take a look at what he said today, what he said yesterday, basically it's the same thing that Mr. Putin and the Ayatollah are saying. And in fact, the Ayatollah says we created ISIS, so you'd have Sunnis killing Shias, and that's why we have to do the things that we do. This rhetoric, I mean, and again, it contradicts things he himself has said. Never mind what the Democrats are saying. I can show you in 2007, he said we ought to get out. Said it again in 2008. Said it again in 2011. So if that's the problem, he is responsible for it.
And Dr. Gorka, you mentioned the CENTCOM report. We just led that with that at the top of the hour. A lot of outrage learning that the American public was misled. The intelligence, the books were cooked, and we weren't really told the situation that was happening.
Yeah, it's outrageous. We didn't even have that during the Vietnam War. And I find it just as stunning that Mr. Korb, who engineered our withdrawal from Beirut, which sent the wrong message to the jihadis in the 80s.
Oh, I'm glad that Reagan did, let me tell you that.
Worked in a Reagan administration and is now attacking Colin Powell. Really, where's the integrity in Washington? How about talking about the facts on the ground, please, Mr. Korb?
Well, I'm happy to talk about the facts on the ground. Zarqawi was nobody. Read what Colin Powell said before the UN. He claimed he was in league with Saddam, which he was not. Saddam was trying to kill him.
We've got to leave it there. Thanks to both of you for joining us, Dr. Gorka and Larry Korb.
But right now, you are being lied to. And no, it is not a mistake. It is intentional, and it's dangerous, and it's putting American lives in danger. A damning new House Republican report finding intelligence generated by the U.S. Central Command was manipulated. The reason? To fool you, to paint a better and false picture to the American people about the fight against ISIS. Just a short time ago, New York Congressman, Major in the U.S. Army Reserves, and Donald Trump endorser, Congressman Lee Zeldin, went on the record. Congressman, nice to see you, sir.
Oh, it's great to be with you.
Congressman, according to the news, the intelligence reports from U.S. Central Command has been deceptive about the state of our fight against ISIS, painting a skewed or rosier picture. What do you say, sir?
This is a pretty explosive initial finding. I'm looking forward to seeing what the IG's report is going to show as well, while Congress continues to investigate this as well. Whistleblowers coming forward with some pretty important information, because our military commanders rely on accurate intelligence analysis for the military decision-making process, development of operations orders. The decision is relying on accurate intelligence. And then the other piece of this is back home, domestic politics should never trump national security. And if this is coming from the top to try to paint a rosier picture for the president's domestic politics, you're putting American lives, service members in harm's way, and risking our national security.
You say it so much nicer than I'm thinking about it tonight, because I think it's just terrible to lie to the American people. Imagine sending your husband or your wife to war, or your children to war, and thinking that it's a much rosier picture, meanwhile that the American people are being lied as to what the state of the fight is. And let me take it one step further. I'm looking at the report. It says the Joint Task Force is troubled that despite receiving the whistleblower complaint in May 2015 and receiving alarming survey results in December 2015, neither CENTCOM, DIA, the Undersecretary of Defense for Intelligence, nor ODNI have taken any demonstrable steps to improve the analytic climate within CENTCOM. Not only are they cooking the books, lying to the American people, but even though they know it, they've done nothing to correct it, according to this report.
Yeah, I mean, it risks our security. We have hotspots in Iraq, in Syria. When you look further out, I mean, in Libya, in Afghanistan, CENTCOM that is the hotspot on the globe right now for American security, for global security. So much of the threat we see in Europe that we're facing here at home is coming from that area of jurisdiction.
What are you going to do about it? I mean, what is somebody going to do about it? Because apparently they're doing nothing about it because they've known about it for over a year, according to this, and nothing's being done. And it may be like packaged together in some nice little report, but the problem is lives are, at risk. I mean, what are members of Congress, what's the president going to do about it tonight?
Yeah, I think the next step is we need to see this Inspector General's report. We need to know exactly who is responsible in order to hold them accountable. As we saw with this president, when he placed 50 special operations forces in Syria, in the hottest spot on the entire globe, he says they weren't there on a combat mission, even though that was completely divorced from reality. So what we need to know is exactly who is responsible so that we can hold them accountable. What's further concerning is that we had new senior leadership at CENTCOM come in, with General Austin coming in and his senior leadership. And that timing is also concerning. I remember seeing so many press conferences, General Austin with the president. I don't know the nature of their relationship. I served with General Austin. I've known him since he was a colonel. I really hope that when we hold individuals accountable, that it didn't go up to his level or even higher.
Well, there's something really wrong with this picture when you got a report like this, and the president's on vacation in Martha's Vineyard, and all the members of Congress are on recess in the House and the Senate, and meanwhile the books are being cooked for the American people, and we have men and women in military who are in harm's way, and we find out that they're lying about the state of the fight against ISIS. And it's not just a lie. It puts people at risk when they think it's a lot different than what they're facing.
Yeah, exactly. So I was at the battalion level when I was in Iraq with an infantry battalion from the 82nd Airborne Division. Our battalion commanders, our brigade commanders, division commanders at the tactical level are relying on accurate intelligence. They need to know not only what type of resources, manpower, equipment they have available, but they also need to know exactly what to expect from the enemy. When choosing a course of action, when you have 3 available courses of action, you're choosing the one based off of the accuracy of it. So from that standpoint, we are absolutely seeing this, if true and if it even goes higher, we are seeing the highest levels of our military putting American men and women who are currently in harm's way at risk of losing life and limb because of domestic politics at home. It is outrageous, and once we can identify exactly who is responsible, those people need to be held accountable.
And I'd love to fax my copy of this report to President Obama in Martha's Vineyard if I had the fax number, so I'm sure that he read this tonight, because I think this is just awful. But anyway, Congressman, thank you very much for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Greta.
And Secretary Hillary Clinton laying out her economic plan. 3 days ago, Donald Trump laid his plan out. Yes, the dueling economic plans.
Wall Street corporations and the super rich should finally pay their fair share of taxes.
Hillary Clinton short-circuited again, to use a now famous term, when she accidentally told the truth and said that she wanted to raise taxes on the middle class.
I will stop any trade deal that kills jobs or holds down wages, including the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
Hillary Clinton will enact the TPP, as sure as you're sitting there. Her donors will make sure of it.
I oppose it now, I'll oppose it after the election, and I'll oppose it as president. As a senator from New York, I fought to defend New York's manufacturers and steelmakers from unfair Chinese trading practices.
She was all talk, no action. Upstate New York, it's a disaster.
Trump's senior economic advisor and former CEO of Nucor Corporation, Dan D'Amico, goes on the record. Nice to see you, sir.
Nice to see you tonight. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so listening to Secretary Clinton's speech today, what is the single thing that you disagree with most?
Most everything. You know, Donald Trump put out a 4-point plan that included taxation, trade, energy, and regulatory reform, each designed to stimulate and grow the economy. In fact, the title of the talk was How to Get Us to Be More Globally Competitive. Each one of these 4 sectors is key to that. What I heard today was more taxes, more regulation, more strangulation of the private sector whose job it is to get the economy going again. The government doesn't do that. The government gets in our way. Donald Trump's plan is a plan that recognizes we're in a global world, global trade. We have to be more competitive in order to bring the jobs back and to create new jobs here and get ourselves back on a track that's different than what Hillary and Obama have done for us since they took office.
Neither one of them touched the topic of entitlements and the growing number, these numbers are getting giant. And, I sort of wanted to hear from both of them how they intended to address this issue.
Well, I think Trump has actually spoken to that in earlier talks, where his whole focus on that is not to do away with the entitlements, but to take the waste out, which would be significant in huge numbers. But he's committed to maintaining the programs that are there to help those who need it. It's just that he wants to be more efficient, less government waste, and he will do that. Now, we heard what Hillary wanted to do today. She wants to give more money away, more of the taxpayers' money. She wants to raise taxes on everybody, not just the rich, as she says. Donald Trump wants to give money back to everybody.
And the one last thing I want to say is that the viewers is that a lot of people have been paying into Social Security for years and years and years, and the idea that it might be cut has got a lot of people, understandably very upset, but neither candidate's really talking about that. Dan, I'm going to take the last word on that.
Here's the solution to it, Greta. The solution to that is grow the economy, get interest rates up, people start earning interest of a decent amount on their savings, and that's what the retired community needs.
Now, the 2016 election, Sarah Ferris, the healthcare reporter for The Hill, says an Obamacare meltdown is imminent for the next president, whoever it might be, or she is. Sarah is here to go on the record. Nice to see you.
Thanks for having
First of all, I told you I saw this article first thing this morning, and I was captivated by it on The Hill. I read it online. It's a great article. But let me ask you first. It says, next president faces possible Obamacare meltdown. What do you mean by meltdown?
So we could really see some of the big insurers in the Obamacare marketplace make their final decision about whether or not this is a good idea to remain in the marketplace. And so the impact of this could be very huge for competition. And of course, if we don't have the competition that the officials are expecting in the marketplace, it's going to mean rates are going to go up. People are going to have a harder time finding plans that they're going to like. And so this could have really catastrophic impacts if we do see that competition go down.
Okay, so prices going up. Insurance companies say they can't make money, or they're losing money, so they get out of the exchange. That leaves fewer people in the exchange. In some instances, I think one insurance company in some exchanges across the country. So there's no competition, so the prices go up, and so then nobody can afford, not nobody, but people can't afford Obamacare.
Right, and we're not quite there yet. Right now, you could say we're at a breaking point where this next enrollment period, this is the 4th time people are going to sign up for the exchanges. So these numbers are going to be a huge test on whether these big insurers are going to remain in the marketplace. We've seen United Healthcare already say they're going to pull out. Aetna and Anthem are on the fence. They're looking like they're backing off. And so the decisions that those make, as well as some of the other big insurers, are going to have really big impacts.
Let's assume that's not a robust enrollment. That's the worst case scenario, right?
Well, the worst case scenario is that we really don't see these young people that the Obama administration has said they're recruiting very heavily. If we don't see the young people who are more likely to be healthy, then those medical costs are going to keep going up.
Okay. And so what's the next president to do?
Well, Donald Trump has said that he would repeal Obamacare in the first day of office, and so this could be the nail in the coffin. But Hillary Clinton has said that she's really committed to making these marketplaces work, to strengthen them. And so she has said she would increase the subsidies that people get so that they can then pay for these higher premiums and get these bigger plans. But of course, then the issue is the price tag and where the money comes
where's she going to get the money for the subsidies?
Well, we don't quite have that information yet. It is still a bit early, but presumably the money would come from, she's proposed in other places, higher taxes on other pieces. So we're not quite clear yet.
Yeah, what's the Obama administration saying?
The Obama administration has been working really aggressively on trying to get more young people in, trying to get these insurers to see the long-term fate of it. There are some insurers that are making money on this, especially those who have focused on low-income populations before. so those narrower networks we hear about a lot. But the big insurers, all top 5 insurers in the U.S. right now have said they're losing money on Obamacare, and this is just in the last 2 months.
And therein lies the meltdown term in the headline.
Right.
So when we can know the answer on this?
So the next open enrollment period actually ends about a week before the inauguration. So this is kind of crazy timing, and so we're going to start to see that data, this really important data, come out just a couple weeks after the next president is inaugurated.
Sarah, thank you very much. Great article in The Hill, and I'll continue to follow this. It's an important topic. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
New clues tonight in the horrific murders of 2 young joggers. Vanessa Marcotte, who lived in New York City, murdered in Massachusetts, and Karina Vetrano, murdered in New York City. Police are looking into whether the 2 murders are connected, and today, this chilling update.
Evidence and information that we have in this case, again, leads us to believe that there was a struggle between Vanessa and her assailant that led to scratches, cuts, scrapes, and or bruises. Anyone who's observed a male with these types of injuries, we would ask that you contact the Massachusetts State Police tip line at 508-453-7589. Anyone who observed any type of vehicle moving on the road or parked on the road during the 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. time frame, contact the State Police tip line.
On the records, Ted Williams has been on the ground investigating. Ted?
Yeah, it was a warm Sunday afternoon around 1 o'clock that Vanessa Marcotte, visiting with her mother, who lived in this home, decided to go for a jog. She came out of this driveway, went down this highway in this location, jogging. We're now at the location of the crime scene. It was in this location, in this vicinity, that K9 dogs picked up a scent. And it was in this vicinity that the body of Vanessa Marcotte was located, burned. A crime scene, Greta. It's very striking is as we come out of this area and come to the road here, there were 2 items that immediately caught my attention. And those 2 items was this water bottle that has been crushed. And what is most interesting is a small liquor bottle that was found in this area in the vicinity where Vanessa Marcotte's body was found. Clearly, we don't know if any of these things are associated with her death, but it tells me that there are other people who are, in fact, in this area. And Greta, I can tell you that while I was there on the scene, we picked up some more important information. On the Record did its own investigation, came upon a witness, and perhaps the last witness to have seen Vanessa Marcotte alive. That witness told me that he observed her jogging down the road. In front of her was a car, and the witness observed the car, went up the street, turned around, came back into the area. The car was still there, but Vanessa Marcotte was no longer in the area.
They're looking for someone with scratches. That means that she put up a fight, so she's probably got DNA under her fingernails if the person's in a DNA bank, except you told me the hands were burned.
Well, her hands, from what we were being told, her hands and other portions of her body was burned. But as you've said, I'm sure they put out a bulletin because they're looking for anybody who may come home with scratches all over their body.
Ted, thank you.